Welcome to the top 5 worst tenants we've ever had.
These tenants have cost us tens of thousands of dollars, and spoiler alert, if you're eating something right now, you might get grossed out.
We're the investor couple. I'm Mel.
And I'm Dave.
And we're the investor couple. On this channel, we teach regular people just like you the secrets to time freedom, location freedom, and financial freedom through real estate investing.
We upload at least 2 videos every single week, so please make sure to subscribe to the channel and click the bell to be notified for when we go live and when we upload other videos.
Now, we've had thousands of tenants throughout the years. Some were great, some not so much.
So like I was saying, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about some gross stuff today. We're going to talk about urine, feces, whether it was animals or humans, and also damages and non-payment of rent.
Yes, and make sure to stay right till the end because we're going to be sharing the worst tenant of all time. Let's do a countdown here. Worst tenant number 5, let's call him Bob.
Bob was a tenant that we inherited when we purchased the building. He lived in a unit that was rented out room by room, and they shared the kitchen and the bathroom and common areas. Now, Bob had a balcony off of his unit where he would smoke cigarettes, and that was fine. But Bob would drink all day long, and this is where it became an issue. Instead of going to use the bathroom that was just down the hall, Bob would use the balcony as his bathroom.
Now imagine the complaints that we would receive from other tenants in the building. Many of them ended up moving out because of this tenant.
This balcony was over the parking lot, so you can imagine tenants getting out of their vehicles or going to walk their pets to go to the washroom.
Trying to barbecue their meals.
And there's Bob, who had had way too much to drink and was urinating off the balcony close to them and on the parking lot. So this was an issue. This was something the neighbors would call us about. The police were called a few times. And who wants someone urinating off the balcony?
The major issue with Bob is that this was not a one-time offense. He kept doing these things over and over again, despite us calling the cops and trying to get him out.
We actually had him evicted by the sheriff, and after that he kept trespassing, coming back to the building until we had to serve him an order, and then the police finally took him away and told him, don't come back to this house because you'll get arrested if you do so.
Yes, and can you believe that he actually tried renting some of our other places? It was a no. Number 4, Judy, the smoking queen.
This was another tenant that we inherited when we purchased the building. Now, Judy had been there probably 20 to 25 years, smoked a lot of cigarettes, which we have no problem with, but she smoked in the unit with the windows closed constantly. Now, that is only the beginning of the issues with this unit. She had a little dog that she didn't really let out of the house. And what do dogs typically need to go outside for? To go to the bathroom. Well, guess what? They would do it in there. So that unit had a lot of things going on. When Judy moved out, our maintenance staff refused to actually walk in the building.
Yes, we actually had to outsource it because they wouldn't want to go in.
Every time they walked in the unit, they kept gagging and had to run out. So it was very, very bad. Now, like I said, the smoke damage, we had to replace everything in the unit, the entire bathroom, the entire kitchen, all the drywall, all the carpets. Every single thing was removed and replaced. Now, the even grosser thing was that the dog had peed and pooed, and this was numerous dogs over 20-something years, had peed and pooed into the floor. So think of that saturating for that amount of time. I'm gonna gag just thinking about it.
Once she finally moved out, we had spent about $15,000 to redo this unit. Finally, we had a good tenant move in. Worst tenant number 3, the hoarder.
When you walk into a unit and have to ask yourself, I wonder if this person has ever thrown anything out ever, that is an issue. And that is exactly what happened with this tenant. This was another tenant that we inherited through buying a building. When you walk through their unit, they had little paths. And when I mean little paths, I literally mean little paths where I would have to turn sideways to walk through them because there was so much stuff from the floor to the ceiling, except for this little walkway in every single room. Now let's break down the rooms. So the living room would have a little path to the couch. The couch would have still some stuff on it, but it would have a little path there. You could sit on the couch and you could see the TV.
Now think about the health and safety issue here as well. What if there's a fire and the fire department needs to come in? They could trip, they could hurt themselves, they might not be able to find her in this awful mess.
Yeah, it's just not a good situation. The kitchen was probably the grossest because that's where the food was, right? And the food would not get thrown out, so it was
I'm pretty sure she didn't have one clean plate in there.
Yeah, that's too bad. We had the fire department come in and take a look at it, and obviously it was an issue. They didn't like the fire load, so they had worked with different agencies to help her out. But eventually she ended up moving, and once again, this was a gut job. Because think about it, all that old food in the bathroom, they didn't throw things out either. Just think of the grossness of that. Just another unit destroyed by a tenant not throwing anything out ever.
So pro tip here, if you're gonna rent to a tenant, make sure to check out their Facebook page and see if they have anything in the background. Are they hoarding or not?
Before we head over to our worst top 2 tenants of all time, smash that like button.
Worst tenant number 2, and this one, let's just call her the Klepto.
So we call her the Klepto because she stole from us. She stole money and time. She lived in our unit, not paying rent, and racked up rent arrears of just over $11,000. It hurts me just to even say that.
It's painful. That's a lot of money, and she knew exactly what she was doing. She made the choice of not to pay rent. But of course, this will end up affecting her long term as well.
Now, the weird thing about this, she was a good tenant. Her place was kept very clean. We didn't have
even cleaned it when she moved out.
Yeah, we had the sheriff evict her, and she took everything out and cleaned everything, which is usually the complete opposite of what happens. She just didn't pay rent. I don't know what the issue was, but we would have kept her as a tenant. It's too bad she didn't pay, but she racked up a huge bill, and we lost a lot of time and money on her. So that's why she's number 2 on the 5 top worst tenants.
Now the moment you've been waiting for. Who gets the award for the worst tenant ever?
This one is number 1 because it was a $37,000 repair. Let's dive into this story. And I say story because there truly is a story to this. They moved in initially and were great. We had rented to them, everything was going well. They would call us. They were kind of like the eyes for our building.
Yes, and we had checked references. They had received great references. So we were quite confident that they would be fantastic tenants.
And they were for, let's say, the first year. But then I don't know what exactly happened. We started getting complaints. They lived in a triplex and they were the middle unit. They had pets, and they just kept amassing more and more pets, all sorts. And I have no issues with pets, but how many dogs can you have in a 2-bedroom apartment? How many cats can you have? How many lizards, iguanas, all that stuff, again, is not a problem. But when you have a whole bunch of pets and you don't take them outside.
And when you're living in a small 2-bedroom apartment, it truly is unfair to the animals if they don't have enough living space.
So now let's get to the good part of the story, if you want to call it that. So they had animals that were defecating on the floors in their unit and not cleaning it up. And we were getting calls from the other tenants. The other tenants were great in the building, kind of like these people were initially, but they were great tenants that had pride in where they lived, and obviously they didn't want to have to deal with this, and neither did we. So we were in the process of trying to get them evicted due to this when it happened.
We live in Northern Ontario, and at night it gets really cold during the winter. What happened is that the pipes froze. Now, we did our due diligence. We ended up calling a plumber, of course. We thought everything was fine. However, these tenants ended up putting a mop inside the tub.
And here's where the story goes sideways. They knew the plumber was coming over to thaw the pipes. They somehow put a mop to block the tub drain. Now, when the pipes thawed, what happens, right? The water starts coming through and the apartment flooded. We've had floods before in apartments and it's not fun. But the worst thing about this is it now flooded the floors that were full of feces and urine. And that, unfortunately, think they're on the 2nd floor. What do you think happened to the tenant below? So the tenant below...
water everywhere.
Exactly.
Now, because the other 2 tenants were great, we ended up renting to them one of our other units. And in fact, they're still our tenants today.
Here's a tip for anyone who is a tenant and that is renting. Tenant insurance is so important. And in this scenario, what happened was the tenant below did not have tenant insurance. Therefore, their stuff was not covered. And that was a very, very sad and devastating thing for them. So if you are a tenant, get tenant insurance. I think it's $20 a month or so, and it covers you in scenarios where you didn't do anything wrong. You had zero control, but someone else ruined your stuff, and now you're out of luck.
Yes, and as a landlord or as an investor, encourage your tenants to do so. We always encourage our tenants to get insurance. Some of them, like in this case, decide not to, which is very unfortunate. After these tenants wrecked our places, we had to do renovations. So make sure to check out this next video for tips on renovations.
If you like what you saw today, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and maybe even share the video.
I'm Mel.
I'm Dave.
And we'll see you in the next video.